Breaking news. The date is January 29th, 2026. A massive espionage scandal has just exploded in Scandinavia, revealing that the Kremlin has weaponized the one place literally no one thought to look: the church pews. We are talking about a network of Russian spy nuns caught operating inside Sweden. Before we dive into this absolutely wild story, I want to take a second to appeal to you, our listeners who support Ukraine and the security of Europe. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Ardia in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover the Nuns, a network of women posing as holy sisters in Sweden to fund Putin's war machine, and the discovery of Russian churches built strategically next to nuclear sites and NATO bunkers across Scandinavia.
It sounds like the plot of a Cold War thriller, but this is happening right now. Our mission today is to analyze this shocking convergence of faith and espionage. We've combed through reports from the Molfar Institute, Swedish Security Service dossier, and investigative pieces from The Insider and United 24 to make sense of it all.
And folks, you are going to want to stick around because this gets dark. We're talking about Eaglet's youth camps where children learn to assemble weapons, a priest with a commendation from Russian foreign intelligence, and a 33-year-old IT consultant arrested just days ago who bridges the gap between cyber warfare and the altar. This isn't just about religion, it's about the security of the entire Western alliance. So let's unpack this. Who exactly are these Nuns?
We need to look at the St. Elizabeth Convent based in Minsk, Belarus.
Yeah.
That is really the epicenter of this specific scandal. To the casual observer in Sweden, or really anywhere in the EU, they look like the picture of innocence. They're the perfect cover.
Right. The reports place them in wealthy Swedish parishes, specifically targeting areas like Täby, an affluent suburb of Stockholm. They set up these little tables selling souvenirs, religious icons, and hand-knitted socks. It looks like totally innocent charity work.
Exactly. You assume it's to support an orphanage or a convent back home. It plays on your sympathy.
But that's the facade.
That is the facade. But the reality, according to the investigations we reviewed, is that this charity was a front for a very aggressive logistics operation. The money collected from those hand-knitted socks wasn't going to feed the poor. It was funneled to a group called Help to the Brothers.
And if you look at their procurement lists, wow. The mask falls off completely.
It really does.
I was looking at the manifest of what they're buying. We aren't talking about bandages, medicine, or blankets here.
Not even close.
They are purchasing strike drones, Starlink terminals, electronic warfare systems, and thermal imagers. They are literally crowdsourcing military gear for the Russian invasion forces in Ukraine from unsuspecting churchgoers in Sweden.
And we need to be clear about what that hardware does. A thermal imager allows a Russian sniper to see a Ukrainian defender in total darkness. A Starlink terminal gives their artillery units coordinated communications to level cities. This isn't humanitarian aid, it is lethal aid.
Which is why they've been dubbed the Nuns.
Precisely. There is photographic evidence of these sisters posing with the Russian Z war symbol. They've even visited occupied Ukrainian territories, like Mariupol, specifically to boost the morale of the occupying troops.
That is just, it's cynical on a level I can barely comprehend. Using the image of a nun, someone theoretically dedicated to peace, to buy drone jammers that prolong an illegal invasion. But how did they even get in? Sweden has been tightening security since the war began.
Well, they exploited the high-trust nature of Nordic society. The vicar of Täby actually admitted he didn't vet them properly.
He just admitted it.
He did. He saw the habit and, assumed good. On a technical level, they used Schengen visas issued by other EU countries to travel freely, flying completely under the radar of Swedish border control. But here's where it gets really interesting from an intelligence perspective. This isn't just about money, it's about human mapping.
Human mapping. Break that down for us. Why is a nun selling icons a threat to national security beyond the fundraising?
Think about the specific locations they targeted. Täby isn't just a random suburb, it's wealthy. It's where business leaders, military officers, government officials, and influential locals live.
So by setting up a stall inside the parish,
these operatives get access to these people in a relaxed, unguarded setting.
It's soft reconnaissance.
Exactly. They can observe, they can build relationships, they can see who talks to whom, who seems sympathetic to Russia, or who might be vulnerable. In the intelligence world, identifying the human terrain is the first step before you launch influence operations or recruitment.
A Russian spy in a trench coat stands out.
But a nun asking about your family after Sunday service does not.
So you buy a pair of socks, and suddenly you're a data point in a GRU file somewhere in Moscow. That is unsettling. But the nuns are mobile, they move around. What about the permanent infrastructure? Because the reports mention some very suspicious real estate deals that suggest a much longer game.
And this is where we transition from traveling saleswomen to what essentially looks like a fortress in Vestros. There's a church there, the Church of the Kazan icon of the Mother of God.
Vestros. Okay, looking at the map here, this location is suspicious, doesn't even begin to cover it. It looks deliberately tactical.
It is terrifyingly strategic. This church is located just 300 to 500 meters from the Stockholm-Västerås airport.
A critical standby airfield for NATO.
Yes. If there is a conflict in the Baltic Sea, that airport is essential for moving troops and supplies.
And it's not just the airport, though.
No, it's also near a Westinghouse facility that produces nuclear fuel and an ABB plant involved in power grids.
So you've got transport, nuclear energy, and the power grid, all within viewing distance of this one building.
You essentially have a Russian listening post sitting in the middle of a critical infrastructure triangle. And from the descriptions residents and journalists have provided, this place doesn't look like your average open-door parish.
Not at all. Residents have reported high security fences, no trespassing signs, and surveillance cameras lining the perimeter. And crucially, those cameras aren't just pointed at the front door to catch vandals. They seem very interested in the airport and the surroundings.
Exactly. And the money trail is a smoking gun. The funding to build this place came from a foundation backed by Rosatom.
Rosatom, the Russian state nuclear corporation.
The very same. Why is a nuclear corporation funding a church next to a NATO airfield? It's hard to argue that's a spiritual donation.
And then there is the priest.
Father Pavel Makarenko. He isn't just a clergyman. He has received a commendation from the SVR, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service.
A priest with a spy medal. That effectively blurs the line completely. You can't claim religious immunity when your priest is getting high fives from foreign intelligence.
And I believe I read that a Russian diplomat, Vladimir Lyapin, who is suspected of being an intelligence officer, attended the consecration of this church.
They are hiding in plain sight, which is the point.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Västerås isn't a glitch. It's a feature. This is a systematic placement strategy across Northern Europe.
Yeah, I have the list here. Let's run through the map of espionage, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. It's clearly coordinated. Let's start with Boliden, Sweden.
Right, there is a parish there, just 500 meters from a mine extracting strategic minerals like gold and zinc.
Materials essential for the European defense industry.
And who is the deacon? A retired Soviet military pilot and lawyer.
Of course he is. A military pilot watching over strategic resources. Then there's Uppsala, Sweden.
A church sitting 750 meters from a government facility and very near the Air Force Academy.
So you have young pilots training there, future leaders of the Swedish Air Force, and right next door is an observation post run by an adversary.
Let's jump over to Norway. This one really shocked me.
You mean the one in Vardø?
The one in Vardø. A planned chapel, thankfully canceled, that would have overlooked the Geolobus radar.
The Geolobus radar is absolutely critical. That's what tracks intercontinental ballistic missiles. It's the eyes of NATO looking east.
They tried to build a chapel looking directly at a missile defense radar. It is so brazen.
But that's the strategy, isn't it? Deny, disrupt, and monitor.
And it continues. In Finland, the city of Turku actually forced a church to close because it was located too near a naval base. Even in the Netherlands, in The Hague, there was a monastery located near 29 government ministries and defense associations.
So what does this all mean? Why use churches? Is it just because they can buy the land?
It's about non-AC, non-official cover. We've seen mass expulsions of Russian diplomats across Europe since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
So the spies with diplomatic immunity, the guys in the suits at the embassy, are being kicked out.
So Russia is switching to illegals. They need a new platform.
And a church is the perfect one.
Precisely. A church offers a legal, protected space. Intelligence services like SEPO hesitate to wiretap a confessional or a sanctuary due to religious freedom laws. It creates a safe house for meetings, equipment storage, and observation that is very hard for a democracy to penetrate without looking like they are oppressing religion.
It's the perfect shield. Who wants to be the guy accusing a priest of spying? It looks bad, but clearly the gloves are coming off now.
They have to, because the threat isn't just surveillance, it's radicalization. And this brings us back to the St. Elizabeth Convent and a group called the Eaglets.
This part really creeped me out. We aren't talking about Sunday school where kids learn biblical parables and sing songs.
Far from it. The Eaglets is a youth movement run by the convent. The reports detail camps in Belarus where children are taught hand-to-hand combat, parachute folding, and weapon assembly.
It's a boot camp.
It is militarizing youth under a religious banner. They are grooming the next generation of soldiers to fight against the West. And this connects to the deep history here. We have to understand that the Russian Orthodox Church, the ROC, isn't independent like churches in the West.
Right, let's do a quick history check. Stalin revived the church in 1943, right?
Yes, specifically as a tool of the state to boost morale during World War II and to control the population. It has never really severed that cord. In fact, declassified Swiss files show that the current leader, Patriarch Kirill, was a KGB agent in Geneva in the 1970s. His codename was Mikhailov.
The head of the church was a KGB agent. That explains a lot about why the current church leadership is so tightly integrated with the FSB and the SVR.
It's a symbiotic relationship. Just this month, in January 2026, the SVR, the Foreign Intelligence Service, released a statement attacking the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew. They accused him of working with British intelligence. They are framing the war in Ukraine not just as a geopolitical conflict, but as a holy war against Western decadence.
Which brings us right up to the present day. January 2026, Sweden is finally cracking down. We just had this breaking news about the arrest of a 33-year-old IT consultant. What do we know about him?
This arrest is a pivotal moment. This guy wasn't a priest, but he is linked to this broader espionage network. He worked for the Swedish Armed Forces previously, and he ran a cyber offensive firm.
So you have a guy who knows the military systems, runs a cyber company, and is allegedly feeding info to the Russians while this church network operates in the background.
Exactly. It proves that the threat is hybrid. It combines spiritual influence, the nuns, the propaganda, with hard cyber warfare capabilities. The Nuns might be the soft entry point mapping the human terrain, while guys like this IT consultant do the technical heavy lifting.
And Sweden has had enough. The
Right.
Swedish Agency for Support for Faith Communities, the SST, has cut funding to the Russian Orthodox Church.
That is a huge step. They are applying a democracy criterion. If you support a war of aggression, you don't get state grants. And SAPO, the security service, has been very blunt in their 2024-2025 yearbook. They warn that Russia has become risk-inclined and aggressive. The terror threat level is high.
Risk-inclined is a polite way of saying they are willing to blow things up or cause chaos.
Precisely. This is the definition of hybrid warfare. It's using refugees to pressure borders, cyber attacks to freeze systems, and nuns to fundraise for drones. It's destabilization from every angle.
And we cannot forget the impact on Ukraine. Every time someone in a Swedish town buys a seemingly innocent icon from these nuns, that money is being converted into weapons.
That is the most tragic part. Those funds are buying thermal imagers that help Russian snipers target Ukrainian soldiers. They're buying jammers that blind Ukrainian drones defending their homeland. It is a direct pipeline from a peaceful European church aisle to the bloodshed on the front lines.
Okay, so let's unpack the implications here. The Swedish state is cutting funding, we've got arrests happening right now, but is it enough?
Well, that's the challenge. These churches are already built. The one in Västerås is sitting there, cameras rolling.
Can they just shut them down?
It's a massive legal fight. There is talk about the municipality trying to expropriate the land for security reasons, but that takes time. In the meantime, the NOC, that non-official cover, is active. The SVR priest is still there. The cameras are still recording the NATO airfield.
And the nuns, are they still out there?
The warnings from the Church of Sweden have been effective. But the Schengen zone is vast. If they can't sell in Sweden, they might move to Germany or France or Italy.
It's a game of whack-a-mole. You stop them in Taby, they pop up in Lyon.
And remember, they are adaptable. If the nun covers is blown, they will find another innocent facade. Cultural exchange programs, youth sports leagues. The GRU is nothing if not creative.
That is a chilling thought. We are so focused on the tanks and the missiles, we forget about the soft underbelly of our own open societies.
That's the paradox of democracy. Our openness is our strength, but it's also our vulnerability. The Russians know this. They know we hesitate to police religious groups. They weaponize our own values against us.
So what's the takeaway here for the average person listening?
Situational awareness isn't just for the military anymore. If a foreign entity sets up shop right next to critical infrastructure, it's not paranoia to ask why. And specifically regarding the Russian Orthodox Church, we have to stop viewing it through a Western lens of separation of church and state. In Putin's Russia, There is no separation.
The altar and the spy agency are two arms of the same body.
Exactly. The war isn't just in the Donbass. It's happening in our suburbs, our airports, and our parish halls.
Well, the innocence of the traveling nun or the local parish has certainly been weaponized. Europe is finally waking up to the fact that the spire on the horizon might actually be an antenna for the GRU.
It raises a very provocative question to leave with. If Russia is willing to use the sanctity of a church to hide drone jammers and spies, violating one of the oldest sanctuaries in human history, what other sacred institutions are they currently operating inside of?
Exactly. Are there operatives in our schools? Our hospitals? Humanitarian aid organizations? If nothing is sacred to the Kremlin, then everything is a potential target. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.